We've known for 20 or 30 years now what we need to do to address the problem of climate change. We don't need another academic study, we don't need more papers, we don't need more data. Whilst I was sitting in my office working on the computer, and I got the feeling I could be doing something that demonstrates how we can address the problems.
The One Planet development policy under which we've chosen to build this house, the large-scale aims of that are not just climate related, they're also about regenerating local rural communities, local economies, getting kids back into local rural schools which are declining otherwise, bringing life back into the countryside.
It's really hard for people who actually want to work in rural areas because it's very inviting to people with enough money to buy like a second home or whatever, or to retire and move to the countryside to buy up a farm and buy a nice house and do that up. But that means that the prices rise, and the salaries, I guess, in the countryside with like rural workers are usually quite a lot lower. So it means that local people can't afford to live near their job.
We have two sons, both in their 30s, both involved in the business. We have more than enough room here to build something on the farm for the pair of them. But of course, planning is a huge issue.
Planning permission is hard to get in rural areas because the Town and Country Planning Act that was put in place after the war enforces this sort of Victorian notion of the countryside as being a working farm or recreational countryside that is to be beautiful to look at, and not really as a living, working environment for people and businesses and enterprise.
So the One Planet development policy enables you to develop a new house with land attached to it.
It's a set of guidelines that are basically allowing people to build a small farm and a livelihood in a rural area, which in planning terms didn't really happen in the past.
It's an opportunity that opens up the countryside for the potential of people to come and work the land in a low impact way, in a way that's sensitive to the ecology and that improves biodiversity.
If you take the entire global resource, all the resources, all the pollution sinks, all the global resource, you divide it by the population of the planet, you get a number, 1.88 hectares. It's a fairly arbitrary number, but that's the number that is your fair share.
You have 5 years to prove to the council that you can meet your basic needs from the land, and that includes your basic income, your food needs, any water you need, and your energy needs as well.
We have to have an ecological footprint and consumption and impact on the environment of approximately a third of what the average person in Wales does. And that involves travelling less, it involves driving, flying less, it involves maybe modifying our diet a bit, it involves spending less money, because almost everything you spend money on has an environmental impact.
The house must be zero carbon in construction and use. Our house is timber frame, straw bale, it's got solar panels on the roof. This is a clay plaster. I mean, in addition to being a local natural material, it helps to regulate the internal humidity of the house.
The house we're building is a 11 by 7 metre rectangular house. We've used Douglas fir, which is from local woodlands, and this stud-work, which is in between the main frame, will support the hempcrete. So it gives you thermal mass and it also gives you insulation, and it's also completely natural.
The third aspect of the One Planet development policy is that there needs to be a land-based enterprise on site which meets some of your basic needs. Some things like energy we can meet from site through our solar panels and through our wood, but we also need to meet our council tax bills, we need to pay our IT and telecommunications, our internet access. We need to buy clothing, and that's where the land-based enterprise comes in. We have 2 acres of apple orchard, and we also keep bees. So the key part of our enterprise is our apple juice business and our honey sales.
Business-wise, we're going to kind of have little bits that we sell locally, like eggs and excess veg and fruit. But one of our big businesses wants to produce fruit wines. So we'll grow lots of fruit in our forest garden and produce wines that are as healthy as possible.
We're going to be developing a tree nursery on site. So we're gathering together lots of interesting plants from all over the world, which will form the parent stock. There's all sorts of different things, lots of berry-bearing trees. I will also use those for a juice-making business. So we've got a few things that are all sort of interlinked. I found it extremely difficult, the consumerist lifestyle and the waste involved in living in a city.
Unless you've saved up enough money, then you're renting, and then you're stuck in this cycle of having to work to pay rent. The rent takes up most of your salary every month, so you don't manage to save anything, and you're kind of looking at that cycle until you get old.
It's a lot of work in the early years, but what we're building is hopefully a resilient system that's going to help us have a positive impact on the world that we live in.
A lot of it is about shortening global supply chains. There are things that we currently ship globally that we could produce locally and regionally.
Within the UK, it would be fantastic to see more projects like this.
There's no reason why Wales couldn't support several tens of thousands of small holdings in the open countryside.
It's never going to be the only answer. You know, we need to work on big-scale agriculture as well and solve all sorts of problems around that.
It's really nice to wake up on a Monday morning and kind of go out to the garden, and that's my workplace, and I kind of think about maybe the jobs I could have had in the city.
It's not just about climate, it's about resource scarcity, it's about how we live on the land and our relationships with the natural world, but also that it would be better for us and better for our kids and better for everybody.